On the line with us, I'm very pleased to have Zaid Jilani, investigative journalist with The Intercept, the website The Intercept. You can tweet him at Zaid Jilani, ZaidJalani. Hey, Zaid.
Yeah, it's great to be here, Tom.
Great to have you with us. Welcome back to the program. I was astonished by this piece that you published in The Intercept after Hillary Clinton has started attacking Bernie Sanders on single payer. The headline: Hillary Clinton's single-payer pivot greased by millions in industry speech fees. What's going on here?
Well, basically, you had a candidate who, when she was first lady, was actually strongly supportive of the idea of single-payer. She didn't actually put it in her plan at the time, and she didn't advocate for it necessarily as being done at that moment, but she did tell other people that it would work well. She had told a conference that if they didn't do health reform, we would have single payer by 2000, like it would be inevitable. And basically, her argument had always been that, hey, it's a good system. It's just we can't do it politically right now. But now that her argument has shifted, her argument is to say, hey, Bernie Sanders is going to come in. He is going to do this, and it's going to be terrible. It's a terrible system that will dismantle all your other health care. It'll be too costly. It'll raise taxes.
Sounds like the Republican hit on Obamacare.
Exactly. It's a complete shift from where she was as first lady when she was seen as heading up the more progressive wing of the White House in healthcare arguments. And I think that an important bit of context to this is that there's been a lot of industry capture with Secretary Clinton. Since she's left office, she gave 13 speeches to various healthcare firms, ranging from doctors' associations that oppose single payer healthcare to drug companies. And altogether, these 13 speeches earned her about $2.8 million since 2013. Now, to put that in perspective, most Americans don't earn that much money in their entire lifetimes. Like a lifetime earnings of like an average bachelor's degree holder is like $2.4 million. So really, she earned more than someone earns in their entire lifetime in speeches just to healthcare firms over the past 2 years. And again, this was money directly into her bank account. It wasn't for the foundation. And it wasn't relative to the campaign. They weren't campaign funds. This was personal speaking fees. And I'm not necessarily arguing that this was straight up quid pro quo. Okay, we'll pay you and you just don't talk about this. But the fact of the matter is that if you do want to rake in speech fees from people like these, you can't be talking about reforms like single payer healthcare because that's not what they want. They're not going to be paying you if you're talking about things like that, right? So I think that that's a really important part of the story. And this is part of how industry capture happens with politicians. And the money that she's gotten from the healthcare industry is second only to the money she's gotten from the banking industry. Do I understand that correctly? And we're talking personal income, making her a multimillionaire. Yeah, exactly. It's right. The for Wall Street, I believe it was a little bit more. It was like 2.9 something. So it was right. It's really right behind Wall Street, which is really, I think, shocking to a lot of people because I think she has had an association with Wall Street for quite a long time. And all of this is all of this is in the year and a half before she declared her candidacy for president. Well, the majority of it was in 2013, both for Wall Street and I believe also for the healthcare firms, although I think there's quite a bit in 2014 for the healthcare firms as well. But in 2015, I think she gave speeches up until maybe March of that year. So really, it was the vast majority of it was the year and a half, 2013 primarily, and also 2014. Wow. Now, I understand Howard Dean, it turns out, has also taken a job as a lobbyist for the healthcare industry, or taken a job with a large firm that lobbies the healthcare industry. Are you familiar with that? Yeah, my colleague Lee Fong has a great piece up. I encourage your listeners to go on theintercept.com and read it. But basically, Howard Dean, who had made a name for himself in advocating for healthcare reform, he wasn't a straight-up advocate for single payer. He typically advocated for a public plan that you could voluntarily join if you wanted to. But he did in the past say that single payer was an efficient system and an effective system. And now he's on television saying that actually, hey, the Clintons aren't off base. There are a lot of problems with this system. And unfortunately, what a lot of people don't know is that Howard Dean's day job today is not to be an activist, not to be he's no longer DNC chair, and he doesn't do that much electoral work. His day job actually is that he's a senior advisor at a law firm that does all sorts of lobbying on many issues, including healthcare and various healthcare companies, including drug companies, which of course are actually, a lot of people think about health insurance companies as the most powerful lobby, but probably actually the most powerful healthcare lobby is the drug companies. They have the highest profits and they pour the most money in, and they almost never lose.
Yeah. And plus, they not only own politicians, because of the very high level of spending that they do on national television, I would argue that they own the networks as well.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Many people don't know this, but there's only 2 countries in the world where you are allowed to actually like advertise, for example, prescription medicines. One is New Zealand and the other one is the United States. I mean, it's interesting because, obviously doctors are the ones who write the prescriptions. You're not allowed to, write a prescription for yourself. And yet we still as a country allow patients to be inundated with advertising, suggesting certain pharmaceutical drugs, even when really a television commercial is not qualified to be telling you what medicine you should be taking, right? That's the doctor's job. Yeah. So, yeah, you're absolutely right about the TV advertising portion.
How does all this speak to the apparent and apparently growing schism within the Democratic Party between those who are arguably represented by Bernie Sanders, who want to go back to the traditional values of the Democratic Party before Al Fromm and Bill Clinton basically did what Al Fromm referred to as a bloodless coup in his book. Going back to the FDR, John Maynard Keynes Democratic Party, where the Lyndon Johnson Democratic Party that brought us Medicare and Medicaid and Social Security and unemployment insurance and child labor laws and all those things. Versus the modern, the post-92 Democrats, the Clinton-Obama Democrats, who are, it seems, more interested in compromises, and issues around the edges in ways that allow them to keep their large corporate donors and keep their lobbyists happy, and at the same time, throw the occasional bone at the American public. What does this tell us about that schism?
Yeah, no, I think it's a really, really important point because, for example, Morning Consult, which is a polling sort of outfit, did a poll in December, and it found that 81% of Democrats, people who call themselves Democrats, still support single payer. Despite the fact that politicians have dismissed it for so long, still, like the vast majority of the Democratic base, this is what they believe in. And yet, we have right now a Democratic frontrunner who's waging a full frontal attack on it. And it's it poses the question, I think you're right to ask the question is there a disconnect between people who run as Democrats and the Democratic base or and Democratic voters? And, what causes that disconnect? And I think a big part of it, honestly, is the fact that Bernie Sanders has compiled a campaign that really has no big money support whatsoever. I mean, he does have some max donors, but they're very few and far between. His average donation to his campaign seems like $30. So he's, he can read a poll of Democrats and say, hey, I'm running for this party's nomination. I should do what people in this party want me to do. Whereas Hillary Clinton, is in a position where she has to say, hey, I can say that, but then what will the reaction be from the drug industry? What will the reaction be from the insurance, from the pharmaceutical, from doctors associations, right? From all of these groups that may be smaller in number, maybe they may not represent public opinion, but they have tons and tons of resources and connections, and obviously they have ways to, personally enrich politicians who do what they want.
Bernie, about the only asset he has is his house in Burlington, but Hillary Clinton is worth millions. She and her husband are worth over $100 million. Do you think it's possible that they could be in a kind of a FDR position to say, okay, screw all those rich people and those big corporations, we're going to do what's right?
Well,
we've now got our millions?
Well, it's interesting. My personal experience in the world of politics is that rich people who are actually on the side of the progressives, often they have inherited wealth or something like that, but Clinton's made all their money from doing those paid speeches to corporations, right? That would totally be biting the hand that feeds them. And so, unfortunately, I don't see that happening with them.
So you're skeptical of that. Zed Jelani, one of the best investigative reporters working in America today. His new piece is over at theintercept.com. Hillary Clinton's single-payer pivot greased by millions in industry speech fees. Zed, thank you. Always great having you with us. To watch more clips from our programs, hit the Watch More Videos button over here. And please be sure to hit the handy-dandy subscribe button so you'll always be up to date. Tag, you're it.